So I just got back from watching Avengers Endgame. I apologize if this video is a little disjointed, a little all over the place. I just kind of want to get my thoughts out there on this movie that everyone's seen. This video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen Endgame yet, go check the movie out, come back, and enjoy the video. So there you go. I don't know how I feel about this movie. I've loved the first Avengers movie. I loved Civil War. I loved Infinity War as well. Those movies are my three favorite Marvel movies, at least from recent memory. Off the top of my head, those are my favorite Marvel movies. Uh, Endgame, I just feel like it's a weird movie from Marvel. It feels like a first attempt of an Avengers movie, which is a weird thing to say when they've done all these movies up till now. It just feels weird saying, well, this feels like a first attempt, but uh, in a lot of ways, this movie kind of feels clumsy in some of its execution, and I'll get into that as well. So, I want to get into the first thing that have been talking about this movie is the runtime. It's 3 hours. Is it worth that long? Is it really worth 3 hours of sitting in the theater? Is it all that kind of stuff? I was more interested in seeing what the movie was going to be and seeing, like, well, it's 3 hours. I wonder if it's going to earn it, if it's going to deserve that runtime. And it does and doesn't. It does on one hand when you look at the movie, in the grand scheme of things, like the story is, it is important for it to be that long. There's a lot of stuff going on with it, but I think some of the scenes go on way too long. I think a lot of the pacing gets bogged down by these choices that I just feel like, some of these scenes did not need to be as long as they are. I think they could have been shortened a little bit, but is it terrible? Did it detriment the movie? Did I? Not really. I enjoyed it all the same. I mean, and then that's the thing. Like, I enjoyed Endgame, but I can't say that it was one of my favorite Marvel movies or put it on the top of a list. It just kind of exists. It's like a limbo kind of movie. It's like it's there, but it's not. Uh, you know, like the other Marvel movies. It just feels sloppy. It feels sloppy when you look at the direction in some of the scenes, like how long it goes, and like some of the pauses were just way too long. Like, you could have a scene that's pretty much like Iron Man comes into the scene, or Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man here, Tony Stark. Guys, we have no cereal. And it just goes on, and it's like, do we really need these pauses? Do we need a lot of these long scenes? And there's also like a little segment where they're trying to get the team back together, and some of those scenes were like kind of nice. Like I liked when they were trying to get Thor to join, but that also felt a little too long and roundabout to kind of get there. Uh, as I said, I just feel like a lot of the things that they had to do was a little too roundabout. I guess it was too long. The other issue I had with this movie that was this kind of, it kind of leads to another issue I had. This movie has the same issue that I had with Infinity War, where there's this plot convenience. Infinity War, you had the scene where they pinned down Thanos, and you have, Iron Man, Star Lord, Spider Man, Doctor Strange, all these people like trying to remove the gauntlet, and then you have Star Lord come up and say, "Hey, so where's Gamora?" Oh man, and he's like, "Oh, I killed her. She's dead, dude." And Star Lord kind of ruins the whole thing, and it ends up that he keeps the gauntlet, etc. And that just feels so. And that felt so lazy then. It's like, okay, well, obviously, if they succeeded, the movie would end. So they needed that scene to get there, and it felt cheap in that movie, but it was okay enough because the whole movie was solid enough. Here you have these plot conveniences that one I was able to kind of forgive because it's like very nitpicky and very like silly to criticize, but one was just like I kind of don't get I just don't buy it. So the blue girl, I can't remember her name, the sister of Gamora, I can't remember her name, but she goes back in time with the other guy, the other Iron Man guy. Can't remember his name either. But she goes back in time with him, and she didn't think that if I'm going back in time, Thanos might be able to see what I see through my other me. This weird chain of thought, pretty much. And you might say, well, she didn't think that because she never experienced like a duplicate of herself or something. But I kind of feel like she should have at least anticipated that that could be a possibility because she knew that uh, Thanos could like see what she sees. Like they could have like a hologram of her memories and shit, and it's like she doesn't think that that could happen. And even then, it's a little weird. Like it would make sense to me at least if the future version of her is there, and then the past time travels to that period of time to the future. I could see the future like seeing what she sees and all that shit, but the other way around is a little weird to me. And as I said, that part of the movie just is kind of where it starts to really show issues to me with this kind of time travel stuff. In a lot of movies and stories, the moment you bring up time travel is this can of worms, and it's the same deal with alternate dimensions. Like look at Bioshock Infinite. When you get to the end of the game, it's like this is a whole can of worms that you kind of have to have faith that the story can hold on its own and can justify all these other dimensions and stuff. You have to kind of hope that it justifies it. With Avengers Endgame, it just this time manipulation just feels like they thought about it and then they didn't think about it further. I feel like with time travel, there is a level of stuff you can suspend. Like you'd be like, okay, well, they experience time travel, so what does that mean for the future? Whatever. Some of that stuff could be ignored. This stuff that doesn't get ignored to me, the stuff that starts to raise flags to me, is when they make major changes or ignore rules that should be there. Like for example, I'm gonna use Mortal Kombat 11 as from all things as an example. And in Mortal Kombat 11 story, there's this big time element where people's past selves catch up to the present, and they deal with that, whatever. Uh, there's a scene where Sonya is fighting past and present Kano. She has past Kano on the ground under her foot, and she's like ready to kill him or whatever. And present Kano's like, oh well, look what we got here. I'm gonna kill this person, and that's gonna be the end or whatever. Uh, and Sonya decided to kill past Kano, making present Kano die. And that made sense because it's like, well, if you kill the past version, there's no future. So when you have the scene in Endgame where you have the Gamora's sister kill her past self and have the future self still be alive, it just doesn't make sense. And it throws a lot of issues. The only thing I could kind of think as a way that they went around it is, it only tasered her, and then they just threw her in a time portal, whatever, and sent her back in time or something, which it just doesn't add up. And this is stuff that you constantly will think about, and it's like, well, you kind of have to either trust that the movie conveys what it wanted so well, where you don't think about it, but I kept thinking about it because it was reinforced again by the end of the movie, at the end of the movie, Captain America goes back to return the stones to where they were in the original chronology of where they appeared. Uh, and that was fine and dandy, but then when you find out that Captain America doesn't come back, that reinforces the issue that I had before, where it's like, okay, so what does this mean for the other movies? What does it mean for Civil War? How come nothing drastic changed? Like, when you have Captain America go back in time and stay in the time period, that is a major time difference, a major change in the timeline. And that doesn't cause any major changes. Like, the and this isn't a change that I could ignore. Like if it, let's say Captain America goes back in time, drops off the stones, comes back to the present. Like, you could argue, well, what he did there changed the course of history or whatever. You could argue that, but you could also ignore it because you're like, well, he came back and everything's fine. Whatever. Maybe it's some stone magic stuff. But when you have like a major Avenger go back in time and stay there, like, that changes stuff. Like, it changes the plot of Civil War. It changes the plot of the Avengers. It changes a lot of stuff. So it just throws a monkey wrench in the story to me, and it just reinforces this plot hole than it should have. So that was an issue I had with the movie. That just kind of, I didn't know how I feel about it because, it's like, well, they want to have a happy ending for Captain America and all these other people, and it's like, yeah, that's nice, but at the same time, it ruins the continuity that you established, and it also raises the question: well, if he did that, then couldn't that mean that Thanos came back? Now, you could also argue, well, this is going to be covered in the next cinematic universe from Marvel, and that could be the case, but I feel like with these Marvel movies that I liked about them was that they kind of stand on their own very well, and I kind of feel like Endgame should have kind of stood on its own like that instead of, okay, we're gonna change time and maybe address it in the future, because it just, I just don't like that personally. uh, and that kind of goes in with the pacing as well. It has all this pandering scenes, and there's nothing wrong with fan service. Like, when they first showed the first Avengers movie, and they showed it again, and it's like, oh, that's cool, awesome. You get to see the Avengers, the first movie. Man, I remember that movie's old now. Wow, amazing. But but they kept milking that kind of pandering. It's like, oh man, look at this. Oh man, remember this scene? Oh man, is that cool? Yeah, whoa. Oh, dude, look, it's the past, and it's like it's nice. It's a nice novelty, but when you kind of do these moments of fan service, there is a risk of going overboard with it, and I feel like Endgame kind of flirted with that line a little bit in some scenes. It didn't ruin the movie, by the way, but it was just something that was just like on my mind about it. Um, it was a fun movie overall. It's just I don't know how I feel about the movie as a whole when you look at the, because like these flaws that I had with it kind of stuck with me in that movie. Endgame is fun, but it just didn't have the same effect as Infinity War, and Infinity War was like a very solid Avengers movie. It had a very like threatening threat. It was intense. It was insane. It was great. This movie had great fight scenes and it had a good climactic battle, but I feel like we also, at an expense, lost a cool Thanos character, because I feel like the way that they handled him in this movie, it was just kind of like, yeah, it's the past Thanos, so maybe he's a little more young and he's not as old and weathered as Thanos was in Infinity War, but it just feels like uh, they took Thanos a little step step back. went from this cool, like, kind of cold, charismatic villain that's like, brutal and harsh, to this, I am a dictator. I'm doing bad stuff. I'm bad. And but there's been this long debate of Thanos with Infinity War, of saying like, well, you see, he wants to commit genocide to create an equilibrium with the population, and people have been arguing like, well, is this really something you could empathize with or understand? I mean, maybe this is a very dumbed down uh, ideal that the movie's trying to portray or whatever. I mean, there was at least a discussion with that, and I think that is part of the intrigue of Thanos, of this guy that's like, he's saying stuff, but who knows? Do you agree with him? Do you think he's insane? Whatever. Then you go to Endgame, and it's like, no, he's just bad. He's evil. Look at him, dude. He's evil, and it seems very generic. Like, and it's not like we didn't get cool shit out of it. We got a cool like battle scene with it, but it just feels very uh, generic than what he was in Infinity War. Infinity War, he was a much more interesting villain. To see the lengths he would go in Endgame, it's just like, okay, there you go. uh, so there's that. The other thing I kind of want to address, and then I'll wrap up this video, is Captain Marvel. I didn't see Captain Marvel. I missed out on that movie. I guess how you look at it, it's either unfortunate or very fortunate. Uh, I don't know why Marvel hyped her up as much as they did, and I don't think it's Brie Larson's fault. I don't think it's the director's fault. I think it's just these articles that were just being pumped out about Captain Marvel, and people getting this hype about her, because she really had no presence in this movie. She was in like 3 scenes. She was in the beginning. She was, and all she did in the beginning was, I saved Robert Downey Jr. from space. Okay, we're going to Thanos. We're gonna beat him up. Okay, I know where he is. Let's go. Then third scene, just a hologram. You're not gonna see me for a while. I'm gonna be doing stuff on other planets. Okay, later. And then the end of the movie. Okay, she destroyed a ship, and she fought Thanos for a bit. Okay, and that was it. And it's like, they made memes. There was this meme going around saying, well, you see all these people in the Avengers, they fuck up, but they get Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel kind of comes in there and cleans up the work, and she helps out and this and that, and she participated. I mean, I'm not gonna say that she did nothing, but the level of hype and build up that we got for her just doesn't seem to align. And I kind of feel like it's not really the man, I don't know. Because I don't think it was like, oh well, they need to have a scene that's just dedicated to Captain Marvel doing shit. But I feel like that she should have had more of a presence. Like, maybe we should see, oh, she's on this other planet doing, handling the war, or trying to bring peace, whatever. This is stuff that she's been doing. Okay, she's over there doing shit. She might have heard a whisper of stuff, and maybe it's something important that she needs to come back to Earth to tell the Avengers about, or something. Like, you had that scene with Iron Man and Ant-Man. Like, Ant-Man came out of that quantum realm, and he's like, oh, dude, I need to run and tell the Avengers that we could kind of have a chance. And then he tells the Avengers, and then Iron Man is like, oh, I'm gonna run some numbers. Oh shit, I found something out. I gotta run to the HQ and tell them what I found. And they could have done something with Brie Larson, with Captain Marvel, with that kind of development. Like, oh, maybe she found something, and then she's gonna fly there and be like, guys, I found something. But we just got nothing from her, and then she just kind of shows up to destroy a ship, which was cool. It was a cool kind of thing. It was like, oh man, this thing is just raining heck on these people, raining hell. Oh shit. and then you see this like comet come down. It's like that was a cool entrance and shit, but that's pretty much all she did. It had a few fight scenes with Thanos. Okay, all right, but yeah, just the level of hype that they kind of pumped in for her was just weird. I don't know. I don't know what the deal was with that, and I don't know if it's like, oh, it's Marvel, guys. Marvel's trying to force Captain Marvel down our throats, or it's just journalists being journalists. I think it's journalists being journalists. I think they just kind of want to ride a hype train with it, and that's what we got. So that's a more of a superficial complaint with Captain Marvel. She didn't ruin the movie or anything, but just didn't have a big of a presence, and I couldn't really gauge Brie Larson's performance in it. I guess I have to see Captain Marvel to kind of see if she's a good actress, because this was just kind of like doing the bare minimum, and it's like, yeah, she didn't do a bad job. She turned in a performance. Yeah, she was there, and that's all I got for Captain Marvel in that movie. Uh, so overall, what do I closing statements on this movie? This video is gonna be way too long. Maybe I need to cut down on my own videos. Uh, excuse me. I liked the movie. It was fun. Was it worth watching? Yeah, I think it was worth it. I think, if you've seen a lot of these Marvel movies, it's kind of obvious that you have to see this movie. But even if you're like a casual viewer, like you've seen some but not all, I think this would still be fun to watch. I didn't see a lot of Marvel movies. I skipped out on some because I just kind of got burnt out over a while. But this was fun to watch. I liked Infinity War. This movie's good, but it's nothing that, I think it's a rough around the edges. I think a lot of the flaws it had, I would have been more forgiving if this was like the first Avengers movie. But this is like, how many Marvel movies have we gotten? And it's like, it's there, like there's a story, but it just needs to be fine-tuned a little bit. Oh, I almost forgot to say this too. I'm so glad I caught it, but I'm not a huge fan of undo storylines, and this was a big undo to what Infinity War did, and I don't like that at all. It just cheapens that movie. I think removing the scale and the loss didn't make Endgame feel triumphant. I think it would have been more interesting and triumphant to see, the Avengers kind of, accept what happened, and they just kind of have to move on from it. I think that would have been more interesting. They deal with some of the repercussions with that, whatever. But this just the ending just kind of feels like, oh no, we need all these people to come back, guys. We need them. It's not terrible, but it was just kind of, I don't know. It's this little bit here is more about personal taste. It's like if you like stuff that is more down, or you feel the loss, that's one thing. But some people might like it. They might like this high adrenaline happy ending. I don't mind happy endings, but it doesn't make the story do anything for me. Like it's like Kill la Kill versus Gurren Lagann. Gurren Lagann had this scale, the scope. It had like characters dying, loss going on, that made the journey memorable and made the story feel much more impactful. Kill la Kill, like by the end, no one really died except for the bad guy, and it's like, okay. So, it is what it is. I like the movie, but it just wasn't really one of my favorite Marvel movies. Unfortunately, I just don't know how I feel about it. I can't even say where it is. But if I were to score it, if I were to rate it, I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. Like, it's good, but I just think there's stuff in it that just could have been fixed. But that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll hopefully see you guys in the next video where I'm not this kind of drained and disjointed. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? Alright, everyone. That is it. See you next time.